Right, recording. Good morning or good rising, good afternoon, good evening to anyone who's joining us on our broadcast today, Sunday the 17th of November 2019. This is vlog number 20, very special number for obvious reasons on our V2020 panel. Thank you all for joining us. We've got a blockbuster hangout today, no doubt. I'm very excited. It's going to be a think tank mission today on some topics that we've stumbled across. I think there are many people out there researching this topic in depth, but we are just about getting into it now. This is the topic of gases, in particular hydrogen. I think there are a few videos out recently of people, really trying to highlight or push the importance of hydrogen. In fact, I think Santos Bonacci, who's in Costa Rica at the moment, he did a show recently with a young lad who's really heavily into hydrogen, and he's really trying to get the hydrogen word out there. I can't think of his name. I'll try and plug his YouTube in the description. Yeah, I think hydrogen is such a big topic, so important. It is a big key to unlocking a lot of the secrets that we're trying to find. It's a big piece of the puzzle. We're also going to link in other elements that I think are closely tied to hydrogen. Topics like oxygen, obviously, and nitrogen in particular. Oxygen and nitrogen and hydrogen. Those are the three elements we really want to home in on today. So yeah, without further ado, I just want to welcome our panel. Robin, as always, Pete, Tom in the background. He might join in at some point. Here at the Mystery School at Pineal, I've also got Lee and Anna. They're in the room with me, so they'll be advising me in case I get lost or muddled up. So I'd like to officially welcome them to the team as well. And obviously everyone else in the back room who's listening in, welcome and thank you for joining us. Robin, Pete, do you guys want to give a quick hello or add?
Sure. Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for having me here again, Martin. I'm looking forward to this conversation because I'm excited about, getting this new information out here like this. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, I'll just echo that. Welcome everyone, and excited to get this going.
Yeah, fantastic. Right. So where do I begin? I'm a little bit overwhelmed, if I'm honest with you, with this topic, because there's just so much to soak in. I know, Pete, you were saying earlier on that you opened up the periodic table when we said we were going to be talking about this. I gave you short notice, unfortunately, because I wasn't quite sure what we were going to talk about. But it is overwhelming on the surface. So this, like I said, is going to be a think tank session. And we're probably going to get some things not so correct. So we're just going to put a quick disclaimer and say, yeah, this is a think tank session. If anyone's listening and they're going, no, that's not true, or no, that's wrong, just bear with us. We're just trying to figure this out. And if you're listening in and you do have insights into these topics that we're about to delve into, then please join us. We're likely to continue this topic next week. Get in touch and come on board and share whatever information or knowledge you have with us. We'll also try and get some experts on this topic on the show, maybe as a guest at some point, maybe to help us plug in or fill in some gaps. So, hydrogen. Here's the most interesting thing about hydrogen. In mainstream science, they tell us that pretty much everything in the universe is full of hydrogen. The sun is made up of hydrogen. The moon is full of hydrogen. The air has got loads of hydrogen. Water is mainly hydrogen. Our bodies need hydrogen. So, you know, when I thought about this, I thought this is huge. I mean, hydrogen is literally everywhere. And then I opened the periodic table and noticed hydrogen is the first element on the periodic table, number 1, the beginning. I thought this is amazing. There's something in this, the fact that hydrogen is everywhere. And then it brought me back to plasma. You know, we're talking and they say exactly the same thing about plasma. Plasma, you know, everything is made up of plasma. So I thought, well, they're saying the same thing about plasma as they're saying about hydrogen. So that got me thinking, what is the link between plasma and hydrogen? How does this all tie in? So yeah, this is the rabbit hole that we ended up going down. I'm just going to, actually no, Pete, do you want to read the, do you want to pull up a description of what hydrogen is and read it? Or Robin?
Are you just looking for a standard Wikipedia definition?
Yeah. Just a standard mainstream definition of hydrogen.
All right. Hydrogen is listed as a noun, a colorless, odorless, highly flammable gas, the chemical element of atomic number 1. It shows an origin of Greek, hydro, which is water, and also Greek, I'm not pronouncing it right, but the genus, connecting to make hydrogen.
Yeah, so that's beautiful. I like the Greek interpretation, genes, basically. So they're telling us something, hydrogen, genes. It's also interesting that there are some elements that have got the gen at the end, and gen means creation, you know, as in generation or generate. So hydrogen is the first element. It's got the gen at the end, meaning creation. The Greeks called it the genes or gens, or, you know, which is probably similar to genes. So there's a lot of DNA coding in hydrogen. I think hydrogen, personally, this is my interpretation. I think hydrogen is actually plasma. You know, what we talk about, you know, this is, you know, this plasma thing we talk about. I think plasma is hydrogen. I haven't gone deep enough into it, but this is sort of what I'm starting to see now. And our light bodies that are within us, that we talk about, these light bodies, this plasma body is actually hydrogenated in its purest form. And when it's in our bodies, it's really, really dense, super dense. So it's not activated because it doesn't have enough hydrogen in it. So the hydrogen needs to be fed in order to light up our light bodies, if that makes sense. And obviously, like any other substance, in order for something to grow, it needs to be fed. And it seems as if when you add nitrogen to hydrogen, it accelerates the hydrogen. So nitrogen is a good accelerator of hydrogen. And the other element is oxygen, which I think it gives it equilibrium, or it starts to oxidize the hydrogen. So once again, we're told that we need loads of oxygen, and oxygen is the number 1 gas. I think it's the opposite. I think we need more nitrogen than we need oxygen to feed our hydrogen, because our bodies are made up of hydrogen. So our light bodies are hydrogen based. And then when you look further into it, you realize that plants have high concentrations of nitrogen that they get from the sun, which is an hydrogen body. So the sun feeds nitrogen into the green plants, and we're told we need to eat green plants because they give us nitrogen. Those of us on this journey now know that we're now discovering that obviously we should all be eating plants. We should be plant-based. And you know, for all kinds of reasons. But it's becoming obvious that the reason why you eat plants, or why we're being drawn to eat plants, is because our souls, our light bodies, are yearning to be activated. So they need to be fed with this nitrogen. Nitrogen speeds things up. Yeah, that's where I am. I'm going to talk about chemtrails as well, and GMO foods and oxygen in a bit more detail, but I'll leave it at that for now and allow Pete and Robin to share if you guys want to share. Robin, do you want to?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, definitely. So just to kind of just jump in a little bit on what you were saying, because I did see that young guy who had that hydrogen machine. I can't remember his name either. I guess I could look it up and put it in the notes there. But one of the things that he talked about, and that's what I shared with you earlier, is the idea that when you put hydrogen in a balloon, it rises into the air. But when you put oxygen in a balloon, like, if we just blow up a balloon, what does it do? It falls to the ground. And when he made that, and he was using it to correlate it to life and death, and it really hit me. I'm like, wow. When we think about the idea of ascension, the energies that are coming in to aid in ascension and waking us up and, elevating our body structures and removing the toxins and, removing some of the carbon base and going more crystalline based and et cetera, as the core of the sun core and the planet is crystalline. That's been proved by geophysicists. So it's no reason why, as that light is radiating more and more out of the center of the earth, or in the form of aurora borealis, and the relation of the sun to the black sun, or the crystalline core, and us receiving all this, incredible heightened forms of energy, then it would make sense that something like hydrogen, really does contribute to, our ascending or our expansion or our opening up or whatever. And we always talk about, when we go down that road of looking at the truths and the non-truths in this realm, things are always flipped. So, it would stand to reason that being told the number one thing that we need to live is oxygen and water, right? For that to not be a total truth. So I definitely resonate with this conversation around that idea. And the other thing that I was thinking about is the idea, when I looked at the word hydrogen as well, I came to a similar conclusion that in order to elevate, the high has to do with our ascension, our expansion, and the idea of the dro being water, or to hydrate. And so in order for our gene and our DNA structure to continue to upgrade and to receive these new energies that are coming in, the idea, the hydrogen in the word is implicit, that we need more and more of that. And then the other thing that I was going to say around that is that on the periodic table, which has been reorganized, because when I was doing my research around this, around the water resonance, I came across this hydrogen, as I had said to you before, Martin. Then I kind of went down that rabbit hole and found that the original periodic table, like the ones that the Mayans had for the elements, hydrogen is in the middle. And the whole periodic table is a circle, which we know that we would probably resonate. When I looked at that table, I resonated more with that table. I have an example of it at some point if you want me to put it up as a screen share, but I resonated more with that table. And then also I came across another one where hydrogen was in the middle, and it created the Fibonacci sequence of everything and so it just started making more sense that as a number one element, it's number one for a reason that has to do with so many of the building blocks of material or matter in this realm. So that said, I really thought about the fact that as you're getting ready to move into the idea of chemtrailing, and it was two things, and the water and air, air being full of hydrogen as a molecule, and like you said, the sun being 91% hydrogen. Is that a reason why that's being blocked out? So then I kind of took a look into barium, which is one of the, one of the things they say are in chemtrails. And, of course, barium tries to adversely affect the results of hydrogen that we get from the sun and the air. So I'm fascinated by this thing, and I'm really interested in the build and us discovering more about it. So I'll stop there, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, that's fantastic. I think, Rob, what you're referring to from, the periodic table looking more like a wheel and the Fibonacci, Walter Russell, dug into this quite a bit. He has I have his book on my bookshelf. It's something I look at every once in a while, but I have not gone into it in depth. I feel like this goes for all the books that I have. I feel like every time, I go back to them after, maybe growing or expanding a consciousness a little bit, my interpretations are much different than they were the first time. So it's constantly, picking at these things now and again. But that being said, I don't know if maybe I'll share. Can I share my screen, Martin? Is that okay? So let me know. All right. So this is it's hard to see, obviously, in a small screen. I'll send you this file so you can add it to the video. But it's obviously very, very complex. I mean, there's a lot of small writing. I'll zoom in right here. But this is Walter Russell's work. It's a lot to take in, but you can see it's the spinning of expansion, and then it spins actually back forth into contraction. He actually starts at the center point as alphanon, and then spins out to betanon, gammanon, and then you have hydron. And you see this baseline is where we see a lot of these base elements that we are referring to. Like I said, it's really tough to really explain. I don't have a deep enough understanding or understanding of this to really convey it and articulate it in an appropriate manner. But another file that came up too when I was looking was this one, which I think is similar to what Walter Russell was showing. And this is by the Theosophy Society in 1933. And so again, it's playing off what we talk about from wave standpoint, sine wave. You can see the back and forth, but it starts with hydrogen at the top and then splitting into these other ones, which they're calling aderium and occultum. But then it gets down to helium, and that's where we start to see the real expansion into these various forms to start the base of what we kind of perceive as this physical plane. Again, it's really, really interesting, and it's a lot to take in, and I don't have enough understanding of this to really, like I said, explain it. But what I can touch on, and I'll stop sharing my screen for this moment, but is from an etymological standpoint. I told you I've started to try to break these things down. I have a lot more work to do, but kind of this early stage of explanation, I break hydrogen down as the H, the Y, and the D, then the R and the O, and then the G and the N. Now you talked about gene and generation. I said before, I think the G is the fractalization. That's what we can refer to when we think of ourselves as God, is that of that higher self, that etheric presence. And that N, the upward and downward arrow, can kind of convey several things. It can be conflict, it can be balance. And so looking at those letters and that word together, I kind of explain it as choosing dimensional form, so that hydra, or hiding, right? When we enter this material plane, with the intent on growing, I can look at it like we're hiding. So choosing dimensional form to grow with the intent on returning to wholeness via the balance with higher self. And so H, the Y, the D, H is amplification or heightened. The Y is that choice or question. That D is that dimensional form. The R and the O, I look at the return, and the O is like wholeness, or you can also look at the O as a wheel, and that G and the N, like I said, is that fractalized form in a higher self. And so again, I said hydrogen, choosing dimensional form to grow with intent on returning to wholeness via the balance with the higher self. I also looked at oxygen. Oxygen, I broke it down to the O and the X, then the Y and the G and the N. And the O and the X, you can look at like a rotating wheel. The X is kind of showing you, instead of the cross, you're rotating a little bit. So it's almost implying rotation. You can also look at the X as the upward and downward arrow, except in centered, so almost like balance. The Y again is that question, and the G and the N I already talked about. And so I looked at oxygen like rotating wheel of time to choose to create balance with higher self. And oxygen is actually atomic number 8. And so that would make sense as in regards to our life loops, right? In this incarnated form, where here we enter with the intent on growth, but also with the risk of not being able to exit on our first go round, that we're going to go through many, many loops to perfect our being, while also to bring and eliminate any karmic debt and bring ourselves back into balance before we can exit, kind of rediscovering ourselves, if you will, which I think we're all starting to go through that process of doing. And so those are the 2 words that you had sent this morning that I started to dig into. And I've also started to look at the rest of those first 9 elements of helium, lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, and fluorine. So I will stop there.
Yeah, great work, guys. Great work. It's quite apparent that we've got a lot to chew on, a lot to try and decode. And something that I'm keen on doing is hopefully we can try and keep this on track, because the danger of this is we could get into a big rabbit hole, and before we know it, we're looking into rabbit holes that are pointing us to what we're trying to achieve in this group, or what our point of destination is. So I'm constantly trying to rein myself in and rein the team here in as well, because there's just so much to look into. So I think what I would like, if possible, if you guys are in agreement, is for us to focus mainly on these elements in relation to our bodies, and in relation to this thing that we're calling ascension, and in particular, because that is ultimately, I think, where we're mostly focused at within this group. But yeah, thank you, Robin, and thank you, Pete, for that breakdown, and Robin for the insight as well. I think it's a good place to start. I just want to pick up on a couple of things that both of you said. First of all, obviously, oxygen, like you said, Robin, oxygen is an oxidating gas. Oxidation means death, basically. It means to remove life. So it's interesting that oxygen is called that. It's hidden in the name. And obviously, as Pete broke down hydrogen, and Robin, hydrogen obviously means to uplift. It's in the name, but it's also in the properties of the gas. The gas rises. It's a very light gas. So, hydrogen being number 1, oxygen being number 8. 8 obviously being that number of regeneration or recycling, if you like Pete pointed out. So there's a lot of decoding that we could do by looking at this periodic table. And I agree. I think this the square periodic table is reminiscent of how we've all been squared into this reality. Nature doesn't operate in squares. So I think this was done deliberately to put us off the scent, and to maybe shut off a part of our consciousness that maybe recognizes the truth in these elements. So when people go to school and they learn about these elements, they are under a square spell. They are penned. They are boxed into these sentences. If things are circular, it's a better coding of language, because that is how nature works. Nature works in circles and in more geometric shapes in that way. So yeah.
Mark, real quick, as you talk about the circle, is it okay if I screen share that particular Mayan chart so people can get a different relationship to that periodic table? Okay,
yes,
I'll go ahead and talk, and I'll just go ahead and share it.
Yes, please. Yeah, so definitely, I think that's what we'll use as our base. We'll look at some of the circular periodic tables, the Mayan one and Walter Russell's as well, and I think those are probably closer. I think by studying them, we'll probably pick up better. What are they called? Prints of information or coding within there. Yeah. So. Hydrogen. I think I'm just going to simplify it as best as I can. The war that's happening right now, the spiritual war that we're talking about, the age that we're in right now, the reason why we're all in this dense form is because we've been deprived of hydrogen. Hydrogen is the fuel for human beings. This is what really fuels our souls. And if you want to control people, you just deprive them of hydrogen. In the same way, if you have a vehicle or a car, if you don't want it to move, you just don't put fuel in it, or you put lesser quality fuel, and that car will not perform as efficiently as it should in all ways. And I think this is what's happened to us. You know, people say water is life and we need to drink water. We actually don't need to drink water. The reason why we drink water is because we want the hydrogen that's in the water, right? That is what we're after in the water. So the water itself is not what we want or what we need. It's the hydrogen in the water, the gas that's in the water. And the same reason why we eat plants. We don't need to eat food. I know we've been talking about going plant-based. We don't need to eat food. In our natural state as gods, we should be living off prana. Prana is hydrogen. That's what prana is. We should be living off prana. They say that the sun is 90 whatever % hydrogen. And those who are into pranic energy will say, oh, you don't eat. All you do is look into the sun and you'll get prana from the sun. Well, it's quite obvious that prana is hydrogen. That's the gas that feeds our souls or our light bodies. And it's interesting that it's called a light body. You know, we call this soul the light body in these New Age circles. It's interesting it's called a light body. It's also interesting that hydrogen is the lightest element in the periodic table, like Robin highlighted. You know, so if you want your light body to be lighter, you need to have more hydrogen within your body, and you'll become lighter and lighter and lighter. It's really obvious. The reason why we have to eat plants right now is because our hydrogen levels are so depleted within our souls that we need to accelerate or open up the pores that allow more hydrogen to be absorbed into our being. And like I said, nitrogen is an accelerator. It accelerates the rate at which your body can take in hydrogen. So it's almost like having a good oil in a car. You know, if you have a really good oil in a car, it improves the efficiency of how that car is distributing its petrol or how it's running in general. And that's what nitrogen is. Nitrogen is like the oil that makes things run. So when we're eating plants, it's because we're trying to repair damaged genes within our plasmic hydrogenated light bodies within us. So plants are helping to accelerate that awakening, if you like, or that increase, or that, what's the word? Yeah, that increase in DNA upgrade. Let's call it that. So this is why eating plants or going plant-based is super, super, super important, because it's feeding you what your body really needs, which is hydrogen. Now, when we eat meat, meat is full of oxygen. You know, you see it with, you know, if you buy a cow or if you buy beef and you leave it for a few days, it starts to oxidize. It turns green or gray. That's oxidation. It's starting to die. And oxidation, like we said, is death. So when we eat things like meat, you are eating an oxidant. You're eating something that is oxidating your hydrogenated plasma body. So your hydrogen is being oxidated and you're actually dying, which is the saying, you know, you are what you eat. If you eat death, you become death. And that death is not necessarily always on a physical level. We're now talking on a spiritual level or on a soul level, on the plasma level, you know, the inside of you, your soul. So it's really simple the way I see it. I mean, for me, I try and break things down to their simplest form. And, you know, that just completely makes sense to me as to why we've been given the meat program and we've been given these foods that are high in metals. It's interesting, hydrogen is non-metallic, you know, obviously. And it's interesting why we're given foods with metals, high in metals, high in oxygen. It's to deplete our hydrogen within our bodies, which makes us even more dense. And that denseness is a shutting down of our DNA. So what we're trying to do is reverse this process and try and activate our DNA. that is being deactivated by hydrogenating our cells, hydrating our hydrogen light bodies. And we're using things like plants, eating plants, to accelerate that activation. And I reckon once your light body is fully repaired, you don't need to eat plants anymore. The plants have done their job because your light body is fully repaired. You can now literally absorb prana or hydrogen straight from the ether, straight from the sun and the moon, and that will nourish your soul, nourish your being. This is how I'm seeing it. Of course, I'm talking about this from a very futuristic perspective. For those of you listening in, this is obviously a little bit beyond this time and space. So this broadcast that we're talking about today is very much time travel conversation. This is conversation of the future. This is Eden talk, if you like. This is Silver Age talk. This is, you know, way ahead of the curve right now. So I totally understand that. If anyone's listening to this and wondering how this fits in, this is the perspective that we're talking from. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to share. Does anyone want to add on to that?
Yeah, unless Pete was ready to jump in. I definitely, and I think that one of the things that I was just looking at my notes from the week here, and one of the things that and maybe to bring this conversation, because I do feel like, you know, what you were just saying about this being a bit of a futuristic conversation, but at the same time, it's firmly grounded and rooted in the current deception and conversations about chemtrails. And so I think that's something that most everyone who's listening to this broadcast will be able to relate to, because, you know, we've been being told so much about the nature of chemtrails, what the purposes of chemtrails are, and all of that, you know. And we know most of what, as the theys began to admit, oh yeah, we're chemtrailing, after so much longer saying they weren't, they looked at and the reasons for chemtrailing, of course, weather modification, helping to deal with climate control, and, you know, the all of the talking points, which we know are not true. So we know that's not the reason. And I know for a long time myself, I've been just sensing that it has something to do with this our evolution. It has something to do with that after the Mayan calendar, after 12-12-12. The prediction of the Mayan calendar, when we opened another portal and we began moving through that portal, new energy was coming in to this realm from the sun. And I do believe that it's a ramping up of, like you said, the hydrogen as an ascension molecule. And that ramping up became so apparent that, let's say, the overlay of this matrix, you know, that's what I call it, because I don't really believe in empowering it anyway, so we just call it an overlay that's got a different agenda, began to ramp up things like controlling the amount of this life force that was going to be coming into us, because they couldn't control the fact that the planet is expanding, and there's this whole growth factor that's happening, which has been, you know, being monitored for 20 plus years by geophysicists, right? So they can't stop, you can't stop this powerful expansion that's occurring. But what you can do is maybe try to veil it and control it. So the idea of chemtrailing seemed to make sense that, well, you know, they're trying to control something that's coming in that's beneficial to us, not all this weather, you know, modification. And so when we think about it from the conversation of hydrogen, which you're introducing here, Martin, it makes a lot of sense that if as we talked about the sun being largely hydrogen, and then the water molecules in air carrying, you know, an incredible amount of hydrogen, then these are two, you know, life-giving forces. And then water being the third, we being told we just have to drink a lot of water, but we know the water has been tampered with forever. And we've been told, oh, the reason water is calcifying the pineal gland and all that. But you and I had a conversation a few weeks back where we realized, you know, I talked to you, we were sharing back and forth, and And, because I had the realization that they can't affect the pineal gland either. It's not calcified. If we think about as many times you close your eyes and it's active, that thing is active. So the reason for water could maybe have more with the hydrogen molecules being corrupted by the fluoride and fluoridation, because we know that any of the ides are a replacement for the natural ide of iron. And when you go down this hydrogen rabbit hole, you start realizing that also hydrogen can connect with the element of iron in a positive, health-giving, life-giving way. So then it would make more sense that let's replace the ides in the body with chloride, fluoride, all that, so that the thyroid can't take in the iron from the body, because all these ides have floated in and filled all the iron receptors in our body, which also makes us not have the ability to take in hydrogen as easy because of the hydrogen iron correlation. And then on top, if that's not enough, then the barium and all these other things that are supposed to be in chemtrails also act as blockers. So people are having more problems with skin, skin cancers and all kinds of things that have to do with that. And so I'm speculating too that the skin breathes in. I remember my Tai Chi teacher instructor. He shares a lot of the stories of his sifus, and he talks about one who was able to hold his breath for 20 minutes because he was able to breathe through his skin. Whoa, okay, that being the case, is hydrogen an easier molecule as a gas to bring through the skin and hydrate the body and give life to the body, because we're so focused on thinking it's oxygen, So, there's a lot of things to delve into here, but I'm suggesting too that these chemtrails are designed to block the universal cosmic intelligence that is naturally coming in right now in waves from the sun and from the great central sun of the center of the earth, and that this expansion of the earth cannot be stopped. And so the more that we are aware and we elevate our bodies so that we are closer to the hydrogen component, we rise above the splitting of the earth that's happening, because we're like the balloon. We just rise above it. We can't be captured by it. So those are some of my ideas. I'll stop there.
Yeah, I can't agree anymore, Robin. I just had goosebumps as you were speaking there, because we're all nodding in here as you were speaking in agreement. That's exactly the same conclusions that we came to, that obviously, they can't stop it. All they're trying to do is keep the batteries low. And it's this tug of war that's happening because the cosmos or the universe is obviously sending in more hydrogen. The sun is intensifying its hydrogen release, and the moon. And what the matrix is doing is, at the moment, they're trying to block. It's all about blocking us from receiving this hydrogen, which will give us DNA upgrades and awaken us. So what's happening is, for those who are a bit more mature spiritually, we have to, we're in the fight for hydrogen. This is a hydrogen war. We're desperately trying to receive as much hydrogenated molecules or atoms or whatever you want to call them as we can, and absorb them as much as we can. And yes, you're right. I think our skin obviously definitely does breathe and absorb this, because your light body, your light body is beneath, it's in your blood. It's locked within your blood. It's oxidated within your blood. As a full spectrum being, we shouldn't have blood flowing through our body. We should have light flowing through our body. That's what needs to be flowing through our body, not blood, light. The reason why it's blood is because we're dense at the moment. It's full of oxides. It's full of, nasties, basically, that we've put into ourselves over many, many generations. And it seems like now, as the cycle is turning, as we're starting to awaken, we're starting to realize that we're trying to get back up the curve as much as we can. There are obviously those who are going to be ahead of the curve, that are realizing that actually what we need to do is remove our denseness, come from dense to light, and bring back the light within us, our light bodies. And you hear this in all kinds of circles, in religious circles, you hear it in New Age circles, you hear it in occult and esoteric circles. They always talk about this, the light within you, the light within you. And we think it's metaphor. Well, I think it's actually literal. You know, there is a light within us. It's dim at the moment. Lee was just saying, you know, our batteries are low, and we just need to top up our batteries and the light will come on, basically. So all these things that we're doing, eating right, breathing, sun gazing, frequencies, what you listen to, what you're looking at, all of that is to do with controlling the intake of molecules that are coming, you know, into your light body. What type of light are you ingesting through your hair, through your skin, through your mouth, through all parts of you? And chemtrails are a big part of it. This is what they're doing with chemtrails. They're putting these elements in there, obviously, to suppress the amount of hydrogen that we can absorb, which will then, of course, activate DNA and you know, and unlock our soul, set us free, set the light within you free. So this is the game that's happening, and I think it ties into the event as well. This event that's coming. This is going to be the final burst of hydrogen, if you like. They talk about the sun one day exploding and burning everyone. You know, I think that burning is an inverted burning. It will be a burning, but it'll be a burning of light, of consciousness, of hydrogen. It'll be an acceleration of hydrogen, what we're calling the plasma event. That plasma is hydrogen, which will come from the sun. So that will be the final big burst of hydrogen that will be released into our realm. And of course, they are doing all they can to suppress how much of this hydrogen or this plasma that we take in. So it's really good to know this. And obviously, the more nitrogen that you start harboring into your body now, right, through the foods that you're eating, through breathing, through all these exercises that we're doing and practices, when that event happens, your body is set to absorb maximum hydrogen or plasma during that event, because you've already preset all the temperatures, if you like, all the dials are ready to absorb that hydrogen. This is why we're doing all these things. So I think when the event happens, this is when everything will be, well, turned on or activated, because we'll be topped up. Our batteries will have a big burst of energy, a big surge of energy, if you like. And this is how I'm starting to see all of this happening. And that's where the magic will happen. So like I put a video out, I think it was a year ago, where I sort of spoke about this. I got a download. I forgot what it was, I think it was called Detox 2020 or something. Yeah, it's on the channel anyway. And at the time, I didn't really understand what I was seeing, that download. And I talked about this burst of energy that will come, and those who are prepared or prepared, this is the pairing of energy, will be charged by this plasma event. And I didn't know what that was in detail, but it's starting to come to light. And it's starting to make sense why we need to be on plant-based. Those of us who are spiritually ready to turn ourselves on, to turn on that light within us and become super beings, if you like, and move on to this next realm of space and time. This is why we need to be doing these practices of sun gazing and all these things. And this is why I think they bring out these superhero movies with lots of plasma in them. You know, we talked about Raising Dion. The other day we watched X-Men. There was lots of plasma in there. You know, all the superhero films, they're all full of this plasma discharge that happens and that activates people, and they all of a sudden have these superpowers. I think I think that is literal. I think that is definitely going to happen literally. It's pre-programming. Sorry, Peter, I hijacked your space. If you want to jump in.
No, that was perfectly fine. I was second guessing whether or not I should share what I was going to share, because I felt like it might be taking us off of topic. But as you know, my mind is always looking at the words, and something came to mind regarding, hidden and its, its relationship to Eden. And it made me think of that, Gospel of Thomas parable regarding all that is hidden will be revealed. So now that I've said it, I might as well share what I was going to share. But, when you look at hidden, HIDDEN, I have a tendency to take out the vowels. So then breaking it down to HD and then DN. And those two D's are both those halves, right? When you flip them against each other, you have a full circle. And so to me, it looks like you have the amplified half and the other half is in balance. And so hidden is almost like your amplified, full form that's in balance, right? And revealed is almost like revealed. And so, all is hidden will be revealed or revealed. It's almost suggesting that hidden is, what we can perceive as that which is in the spiritual, which we think about this, right? All is consciousness, all is mind. And so it's not materialized, it is hidden. And so hidden is a good thing. It's the optimal etheric, essence of being. But reveiling is then putting it within the covering of material, which, then made me think of Eden. And we talked about Eden in the end, but what if it's just E? The I is often interchanged with the E, like Italia. So it's what if it's IDN? So the ID in the end. So it's incarnated dimensional form in balance. So Eden is just, it's not a physical destination. It's a conceptual. When we reach that balance of this incarnated form, we've essentially reached Eden, which will then give us the keys to then conceptualize the next step to when we quote unquote die within this material plane, we will then have the door opened to take that next step out of this school. But what also came to mind is something I met with Max earlier in the week, and we had a great discussion, and it reminded me of this entry into my journal, which I'm just going to read to you now because I think it's applicable. But I said, the cross by which Jesus was crucified is the cross or the axis of this reality of time and space. The latitudinal axis is temporal and the longitudinal axis is dimensional. Jesus individuated into a personification of source energy or God and was then crucified, entering the material plane of existence. There he experienced the suffering associated with physicality and returned having earned his growth in consciousness, thus demonstrating to the other etheric forms the benefits of a journey into and out of matter. And so it makes me think that death is here. Like we perceive ourselves as being alive right now, but we're actually in the realm of death. Where alive is outside of this physicality. And so I think we talked about this before, everything seems to be reversed or inversed, as far as the way we've been taught. And it's like, once you start to reshape that perception, things start to make sense. So yeah, I don't know.
Oh, perfectly put, Pete. Perfectly put.
I was going to, well,
yeah,
you go ahead. I wanted to go back
go
to
ahead, Robin. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No. Okay. Well, what I was thinking is that's good stuff. I always like Pete breaks down the words, tell you. And you were talking about plasma, Martin, and the blood, and two things came to me. Like first, one of the things we've accepted as true science, and I'm not a doctor nor a scientist, so I've only been able to go on this. My belief was developed around what I was told, but the idea, we've been told that when our blood comes out of our veins, that it changes color. We've been told that, but we've been told that our blood is like a deep blue or a deep dark purple blue or something like that, but when it comes out, it comes red. So since there's this illusion to the blood changes color, suppose, to your point earlier about light running through our body and through our veins, that the true color of the blood would be plasma color, which is clear, right? And that through wrong eating and habits that have been forced upon us from birth, and now how inoculations and stuff are being forced on babies before they even leave the hospital at a couple of days old, this is only getting, more, sinister. But that extra color that develops in our blood, let's say that in fact it is a purple blue, let's just, go with that, is the toxins that really shouldn't be in the blood, and that the blood, to your point, should be running clear and should be plasma. Because I've had a doctor break down to me how plasma is derived through this whole spinning process, and that there's that, it spins at a very high rate, the blood, so that it separates the plasma from all of the other elements that are in the blood. And you end up with a very small amount of plasma to the amount of blood that would have been, to the amount of blood that was put into the device in the first place. Well, that being the case, I've been told, she actually explained to me that the rest of that stuff in the blood is junk. It gets thrown away. Like it's nothing really of use in it. So then I'm thinking, well, that surely would, kind of be comparable to toxins, and what have you. And we know that the type of blood that runs through our vein has everything to do with the type of food that we've put into our bodies. And then just to kind of then separate off from that as we talk about blood and plasma, because I think you're really onto something with that plasma running through our blood thing being plasma, not what we're told is blood. I noticed that even as a woman myself, I've basically always been vegetarian, but when I started taking more stuff out of my diet when I was younger, like breads and a lot of the what they call the whites, your breads, your sugars, and all that stuff that we know have a lot of toxins in them, I noticed that my own female cycle, the amount of the monthly blood was way reduced. So then what we're told for women that, we have the monthly because we're, getting rid of the, it's cleaning the body, and when you didn't, fertilize, blah, blah, blah. Well, then if that's the case, if I clean up my eating, reduce the amount that my body actually had to then get rid of, we kind of fall in line with the fact that the cleaner we're eating and introducing less toxins, that means less toxins get in the blood. And we know that the blood runs through every organ, and the blood then has to go back through the kidneys for purification. Well, let's say the blood is running through every organ to bring us life and to bring us ascension and bring us, a greater connection to the cosmic mind. But yet this blood is spending most of its time now trying to get all of this toxins that's in every organ out and try to filter it out through the kidney to try to start the process of what plasma was designed in the first place. I wanted to throw that out there. And then the other thing I wanted to remind us that you brought up in the beginning of the dream that me and Pete had a month or so ago. We had the same dream about plasma, but we had it all different ways. And so, could that have been a information coming in as a download as we move up onto this portal that's coming up next month? And I talked to you about that and about the opportunity to share that on the next show. But I really think there's something to this this acceleration around all that we're talking about right now, and the idea that we're in the 8th year after the 12, 12, 12, 12, and we know what 8 is, right? And so I feel like the last 8 years has been preparing our avatars and upgrading us so that when we go through this next vortex coming up, that it's going to upgrade us even further. And so I just wanted to throw all that out and remind us about our dreams on this very topic.
Oh, well said, guys. Well said. Both ends. I was taking mental notes there. I should have been taking physical notes because you guys covered quite a bit there. But before I forget, I just want to touch on the calendar. Someone put a guy called Jose King on the last video that he did. I actually pinned the comment, and he noted that the Kemetic and Mayan calendars are 8 years behind our current Gregorian calendar. So we currently use a solar calendar, which is the Gregorian one, when really everything should be based on the lunar calendar. So in actual fact, if that is the case, according to the Mayans and the Kemetics and the lunar calendar, 2012 is actually next year. This year is 2011. So when the Mayans said apocalypse on 12/21/2012, they were right. The 2012 is next year. The reason why we don't know is because that was changed to the current Gregorian calendar that we used. So yes, this confirms to me again, you know, when we look into it, that definitely, I think the event or this big thing that's happening is going to happen next year. And yes, the Mayans were absolutely right in saying 2012, because 2012 is next year. So I just want to put that out there before I forget. I also wanted to touch on what Pete said about everything being upside down and inside out and all these things. You know, it's interesting because, you know, we think, like Pete said, we think we're alive in this world. We think this world is real and we're alive. And in actual fact, everything is genuinely inside out and upside down. We're actually dead. The reason why we're dead is because our real bodies, our real earth bodies, which is your light body, your soul is your physical body on earth. It is actually a physical body, but it's more of a gas. It's not a physical in the dense form that we think of physicality today. It's a light body. So in higher ages, in the silver age, in the golden age, we have our original bodies. We shed this dense physical body of skin and bones and all this. This body is made to decay because it's an artificial body. That's why it rots. That's why we get old. That's an indication. So we're constantly oxidizing from the day we're born, like Robin pointed out, you know, because we are in artificial bodies. It's almost like, you know, Sony releasing a video game. And this video game is a VR interactive game. And you have to wear a certain suit, a body suit, a skin suit. And when you wear the skin suit, it immerses you into a different world. And what happens is, after a while, you forget that your real body is inside a skin suit. And this is what's happened to us. We've now forgotten that we're wearing skin suits. These are not real bodies. This body is not our real body. This body is a skin suit for this fake VRR that we're in this lower age. I'll say fake, but I'm not saying it in a negative connotation that anyone's doing it to us. It's just part of the cycle, as you all know. But it's certainly highlighting that we're definitely in the iron age, in the age of decay, in the age of rust, in the age of falling, etc., etc. And we're slowly starting to ascend ourselves into a higher state of being. So this ascending ourselves is shedding this fake VR body that we have, that we're wearing. We're now starting to realize that, no, I don't need skin and I don't need physical blood. You know, my skin is actually hidden within these things. My real body is hidden within this thing that we call our body, our physical body. So a physical body is an artificial construct. We should not have this. We should be inside out. And I think this is what's going to happen. You know, we're talking, Lee and Anna here. We had a deep meditative session early in the week, and we got really deep into this. And we're talking about this ascensional, how is this going to look like? How might it look like, this thing we're calling ascension, during the event? And we were saying, well, it only makes sense that, you know, if we do the right things now, if we hydrogenate ourselves enough now, when this event happens, what's likely to happen is we become inside out. Exactly like that movie. I think there's a cartoon called Inside Out, where they show these beings with like they're like blue blobbish beings. They've got like a jelly outside their physical bodies. And I think a few movies also allude to this. And I think this is what's going to happen. We're going to become inside out. Your soul will come and it'll give your body a halo, a glow. You will glow, or you have a halo around your physical body. And this is when you will become your real self. You know, the Pinocchio becomes a boy. And once you've done this, you are now a plasma being. You are now a fully hydrogenated being. Your hydrogen is outside your carbon. Your carbon is now inside the hydrogen. Instead, whereas at the moment, our carbon is on top of the hydrogen. So we are inside out. Hence, we cannot access our superpowers. Hence, we don't have direct links to the things that we are fully capable of, our superpowers. So when this happens, I think this is how we will then be able to open a portal. Because once your hydrogen, your light body, is on the outside, you are now able to directly interact with the hydrogen in the air. And the hydrogen in the air will be amplified during that event. You know, it will be extremely, extremely amplified. So we will have direct connection. Your soul will have direct connection with the air around you, the ether. And this is how we'll be able to open portals wherever you are in the world. You'll literally be able to open a portal or tear a hole through space and walk into another dimension, wherever you are, basically. If you're in a place where obviously the air is being allowed to fully hydrogenate. And this goes into 5G. I think this is what they're doing with 5G. I think 5G is going to be turned on to suppress the levels of hydrogen in the air during the event. So people in the cities, the air will not be hydrogenated enough. So even if you are, if you yourself have done enough and you can turn yourself inside out, or you are turned inside out during that event, you may not be able to open that portal because you're living in a place where the air is not hydrogenated enough for you to be able to interact with it. And you'll basically. So this is why it's important to be close to places where there's nature or less 5G and less chemtrails and less all these things, because those places out in nature obviously will have the best chance to be fully hydrogenated during the event. So again, all these things are not there to kill us. 5G is not there to kill us. Chemtrails are not there to kill us. They're there to suppress us from becoming what we should be during this stage, or what we could be rather, during this transitional process. But again, it's meant to be that way because not everyone is meant to be ascending. Some have to stay behind and continue the game, continue the paradigm. But certainly for those who are meant to be moving on, this is our window of opportunity for us to open a window for a new opportunity in a new dimension or a new realm of space and time. And I know this all sounds sci-fi-ish for some of you listening. For some of you listening, it just completely makes sense. That's great. Again, as always, quick disclaimer, take what resonates, ignore what doesn't. Those who are on this path, you know exactly what I'm saying, and you will get it, and it's meant for you at this point in time. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. I think it's really important because I'm starting to really see a clear picture of how we're going to do this and how this is all going to play out. It's all linked to the hydrogen and the plasma and preparing ourselves so that we can pair ourselves with the air. You want your light body, your hydrogen in your body, to be able to pair with the hydrogen in the air when the event happens. This is where you get the word prepare. It's getting yourself ready for a pairing, becoming one, connecting with the ether. And once you do that, then obviously you are able to pretty much do magic. Literally, you can do anything. Open, portals and all sorts. Yeah. Robin? Or Pete?
Yeah, I tell you, I'm just so busy here listening and taking this in, and I'm moving my window around so much to try to find that mute button. But no, definitely. And to your point about the glow and the halo, I had made a note earlier about mana or manna. And we taught, we know from a Christian standpoint, and it's actually appears in all of the religions, this idea of, the manna that appeared when, Moses was going around in the desert with the people that were lost for 40 years. And I think it's interesting that I found myself thinking about that, the idea of 40 years, why 40? But 2020 is a 4 year, right? 2020 is a 4, and a 4 is a 4 is a number of chaos, and there's a lot going on with the number 4 always represents that energy that has to do with chaos and figuring things out, and upheavals and the differences kind of clashing. And so and I was thinking about that being the 40-year thing, and then the idea that they were wandering so long in the desert, they were hungry, and then God, the mind, intelligence, prime source, prime creator, and our examples here produced a manna. And then I've done work down that rabbit hole before, where manna basically is the same as anatomic gold. Of course, anatomic gold is a distillation of all the elements that find their way in the soil. And so then back to the point of growing our food, all those minerals are coming up into our vegetables. So in essence, as we move beyond once, as you get comfortable with vegetarianism, blah, 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 not eating animals, the natural progression is moving to just the minerals, maybe just eating anatomic gold, right? In other words, it's kind of constantly purifying the body. And when we think about older portraits and pictures, they always showed people with halos. It wasn't just Christ that was shown with a halo. As an artist and and have studied art history and have gotten my master's in that, there's tons of pictures. I mean, it was a time, you can go far enough back, that everybody had a halo. I mean, the average person had like a little ring around their head, So clearly we have de-evolved from a time where we were more in connection with our light bodies and the emanation of light coming through our pores, because the more crystalline we are, right? Our pores become these little crystal structures for which the inner light that's flowing through us, which comes in from the heart source and through the thymus and the pineal, that's coming in from the place of, or let's say the immeasurable place of creation. It would make sense that it would come in that way and then be able to radiate out, right, through our pores, creating these halos, creating these light bodies. So I just wanted to throw that into the conversation because I think that fits in to the piece of why, people can say, well, why vegetables? Why things that grow from the earth, fruits and vegetables? Well, maybe that could be an underlying factor as to why, because we're just getting to the distillation of all the elements, and that we really weren't designed to eat food, especially not eat food at the rate that we eat it, this 3 times a day. And even, you go to the doctors and, you get your little checkup. How many times do you eat? And make sure you eat every couple hours, because you want to keep the metabolism stimulated and what have you. And I find that, I've gotten to the place where I eat maybe once a day and I'm fine, I'm good. And what stimulates my metabolism is I go out into nature and walk, because that's the natural stimulator of the metabolism, not eating more food and making the body more sluggish. So I wanted to throw that in there. And also to your point about the calendar, one of the things that I was sharing with you earlier that I wanted to introduce next week as a download that I received, that's is just another way to think about maybe this energy that's coming in, had everything to do with the 13-month calendar. So when you went to talk about the lunar calendar, I just smiled to myself, because that's what I'll be bringing in is the information from that 13-month calendar. So anyway, there you go.
Wow, awesome. Pete, do you want to say something before I jump in?
No, go for it.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that, Robin. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think as you were speaking, Lee was just highlighting, you were talking about the halo and the glow, and Lee was just saying that science actually talks about this. It's called biophotons. So this stuff that we're talking about, the light body or the light within us, is spoken about in mainstream science. And they call it biophotonic light that is within our bodies. And you can actually measure a person's biophotons scientifically. So this is not, anything too obscure or too crazy. This is even agreed on by mainstream science. This is the glow that is within us. This is your aura that can be measured. We can all measure the aura. So the aura is basically your biphotonic light, or the amount of, or how hydrogenated your soul is, your body is, your light body, your inner body, your real body is. And of course, if you look at all things in the universe, or in our known universe, in this world, at least in this realm, the things with the most amount of biophotonic light are fruits. Fruits have the highest spectrum of biophotonic light. So, common sense should just tell us, if if our bodies have biphotonic light and they say you're very healthy, the more biphotonic light, because bio means life and photon means light. So the more life light that you have in your body, the healthier you are, then naturally we should be eating more life. And fruits have the most amount of biophotons. So obviously we should be eating fruits for more life. And then when you measure the biophotons of meat or any of that food, there's no biophotons in them. They don't glow at all. You know, there's no biophotonic, there's very little biophotonic light. So it's telling you that, you know, that is not serving you. That food is dense. So obviously the closer that fruit is to the tree, you know, when you eat fruit connected to the tree, straight off the tree, that is when it's got its highest amount of biophotonic light. And obviously the more that fruit sits, the more it starts to lose its biophotonic light, but it's always going to be stronger than anything else that you can eat, definitely. So this is why fruits are for you eat. You must eat fruits. Fruits are the key to everything. If we eat more fruits, the fresher, the better, the more organic, the better, obviously. This whole thing is all about trying to prepare your biophotons within you, your light body, for this charge of energy that is coming to us from the universe, that will be coming in. So, you know, I just wanted to really, really stress that point. I also wanted to touch on another point that I think a lot of people will be wondering, because a lot of people will hear what I just said earlier on and say, oh, well, I can't leave where I am. I'm in the city. There is 5G. Does that mean that, I'm doomed or whatever? I would say no, absolutely not. As far as the ascension goes, for those of you who are feeling like you are on that path of ascension and you really resonate with this idea of ascending semi-physically or physically to another realm, but obviously you don't have the means to be in the places we're talking about or to the things that we're talking about or to be able to prepare yourself most efficiently. We're talking about scenarios of what might happen. And then the rapture came in mind. What is the rapture? What do they mean by the rapture? These religious circles that talk about the rapture. And obviously to rapture is to tear something away. Now, the way we see it, when we're having this brainstorming session the other night, we had this download and it was so clear that, this ascension does not have one route, like we've been saying. There isn't a one way of doing this. There isn't a one road to Rome. There are many, many roads that lead to Rome or to Eden, if you like. Now, the reason why we're doing these things that we're talking about, going into nature, eating fruits, and going extreme, it is in a form of extremism where we're doing things extreme, is because we don't want this ascension to be rapturous for us. We want it to be a breeze. We want to walk into Eden without a traumatic rapture, if that makes sense. So how I'm seeing it is, when this event happens, if I am in the right place and I have prepared myself in the right way as much as I can, when this event happens, if it happens next year, when and if it happens, we are able to transition from this realm into the next realm in a very calm and easy way. I'm able to not rapture my light body from my physical body, but able to turn myself inside out, to glow, to allow my biophotons to leave my blood, if you like, and then encompass my physical body, become a ghost, if you like. That's what a ghost is, to become a ghost. And then once we do that, we can open a portal, like I'm saying, and literally walk through Eden, out in nature, in the forest, exactly like they show you in the movies. You see it in all these movies where they open portals. That is so much truth. They're literally telling us a literal reality, a literal truth of what is possible and what could happen if we are in tune at the right time in the right place. So this is how we want to do it, and then walk into Eden, and it's a nice, gentle transition. Now, however, if we're not in the right place and at the right time, and if we've not done enough of the work, but your mind, because all is mind, your consciousness is there, which most of you are. If your light body and your physical body are not prepared, your consciousness has to be raptured somehow, which means that your physical body, you have to shed it, you have to leave it behind. So you will likely die. You'll have a heart attack or something will happen physically. You will die, but your light body and your consciousness will leave your body, literally, again, like a ghost, but this time without your physical body. Your physical body will remain behind. And then at that point, you will then be able to then open a portal and ascend. But you'll have to be raptured. Your soul, your biophotonic body will have to be raptured away from your current physical body.